Welcome back to Arithmetic Progressions, and in this video we will be looking at the terms of a sequence. So we've seen what a sequence is earlier, and I'd shown you a graph in one of the previous videos that we are going to be looking at in this video. So if you remember this graph, then it's a pattern of someone studying 1 week before the exam, right? They study a little on the first day, a little more on the second, and so on, and maximum on the seventh day. So what we are going to do here is we are going to name each of these terms of the sequence. So each blue bar is a term of the sequence, and we are going to give each of them a name. So we'll start with the first one and call it T1, and then we'll go on calling it T2, T3, the fourth one T4, and so on until the last one will be T7. So we give each of them a name. T stands for term, and the suffix stands for the number of the term. So the fourth term, for example, would be T4. And in general, the nth term we would denote by Tn, T suffix n. Now the other thing we're interested in is what is the sum of the first, let's say, n terms. So that sum we denote by Sn. Okay, so to give an illustration of this, if we wanted to denote the sum of the first three terms, so we want something that tells us how much someone studied in the first 3 days. So let me draw this circle to illustrate what I mean. This would be called S3. So in place of n we have put 3 because this is the sum of the first three terms, T1, T2 and T3. Similarly, if we wanted to find the sum of the first four terms, so if we wanted this sum, we would denote it by S4. That would be the sum of T1, T2, T3 and T4. Now, if you are given S3 and S4, could you find what T4 is? And the answer is yes. All you have to do is simply subtract S3 from S4 and you would be left with T4, the fourth term. So let's just write this formula down. T4 would equal to S4 minus S3. Sum of four terms minus sum of the first three terms. And in general, we can say that the nth term Tn will equal to Sn minus Sn minus 1. So to find the nth term, you would have to take the sum of n terms and subtract the sum of n minus 1 terms from it. Now this formula is really useful in solving a lot of problems on your SSC board exam. So I'll just repeat it. To find the nth term, you simply take the sum of the first n terms and then you subtract the sum of the first n minus 1 terms from it. So let's move on. Now to start with, we are going to look at a really simple problem. But keep in mind that even though you might find this ridiculously simple, this kind of problem does appear on your SSC board exam. So given, let's say, Tn is equal to n plus 3. Okay, so your nth term they've given you is equal to n plus 3. And they've asked you to find the first three terms of the sequence. So I repeat, they've given you the nth term is equal to n plus 3 and they want you to find the first three terms of the sequence, which would be, if you remember what the way we name the terms, the first three terms will be T1, T2 and T3. That's what you need to find. So all you have to do is the formula that they've given you for Tn equals n plus 3. You just substitute in place of n, you put 1, then you put 2 and then you put 3, and that will give you the first three terms of the sequence. So let's find T1 will equal to 1 plus 3, that is 4. Next, T2 is equal to 2 plus 3, that's 5. And finally, T3 is equal to 3 plus 3, which is equal to 6. And there we have our first three terms. So the first three terms of the sequence are 4, 5 and 6. Now it doesn't get any simpler than this, and if you see this question on your SC board exam, you should really be happy and you should get full marks on such a thing. Now for the next question, we're going to try something a little bit harder, but not much. It's still pretty simple. So let's take a look. So in this problem, we are given the sum of n terms is equal to n into n plus 1 upon 2. Last time we were given the nth term. This time we are given the sum of the first n terms. And we are asked to find again the first three terms of the sequence. So if you remember earlier, we've done a similar thing. We found we had the sum of the first three terms and the sum of the first four terms, and then we found the fourth term by subtracting the sum of the first three terms from the sum of the first four terms, right? And the general formula we said was Tn is equal to Sn minus Sn minus 1, right? So the first thing that I want to clarify is that the first term and the sum of the first term is the same thing, right? So T1 is equal to S1. I hope the reason why this is clear to you, because if you're just looking at one term, there's nothing to add to it. So the sum of the first term is the same as the first term itself. There's nothing to add to it. So that's why T1 is equal to S1. So how do we find out T1? We simply find out S1 by plugging in 1 in place of n in the given formula. So wherever there is n, we are going to put 1 and then calculate and see what we get. So S1 will equal to n into n plus 1 upon 2, which is 1 into 1 plus 1 upon 2. And if you calculate that, you get 1. The answer is 1. So the first term we know is 1. Now how do we find the second term? For this we use the formula we had studied earlier for the nth term of a sequence. So T2 will equal to S2 minus S1, right? The second term is equal to the sum of two terms minus the sum of the first term. So we already know S1 is equal to 1. We already calculated that, right? So all we have to do is find S2 and then we'll subtract 1 from that and we'll find our second term. So to find S2, again we plug in 2 in place of n in our given formula for Sn. So S2 will equal to 2 into 2 plus 1 upon 2 and minus S1, which is 1, so minus 1. So this gives us 3 minus 1, which is 2. So we know our second term now. Our first term was 1, our second term is 2. Now we find the third term in exactly the same way as we found the second term. So T3 equals S3 minus S2, right? And we already know S2 is equal to 3 because we calculated it in the previous line. And all we need to find out is S3, and that we do by substituting 3 in place of n in our given formula. So S3 will equal to 3 into 3 plus 1 upon 2. And we need to subtract S2, which is 3, so minus 3. And this gives us 6 minus 3, which is equal to 3. So now we know the first three terms of the sequence. They're 1, 2, and 3. So I hope this problem also you found pretty easy, maybe not as simple as the previous one, but still extremely doable, very easily solvable in the board exam, and I don't think any one of you should have a problem with this. So let's end this video on this note, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, and take care.